Just give it a couple of minutes.
Sure, not a problem. Yeah, people might hop on, and even if they don't, it's like the recording in the studio, right, for broadcast later.
Exactly. You can edit. Let's see if it's my page. Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, that's right. I wonder if you could edit.
I'm just going to see if it showed up on here. Okay. Oh, I can see myself. Okay.
I hate when that happens.
It's gone through. The broadcast has gone through. Got some people joining. Let's see. I can't actually see who's here. Oh, hi, Jackie. Jackie's joined us.
Hi, Jackie.
We'll give it like a few seconds and then we'll begin, and people can just kind of come in as they choose. Oh, yeah. Okay, so let's get started. I can't actually see who's on this. That's odd, but hello, whoever has joined us. I can't see your names at the moment, but hi. Thanks for joining us today, this afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. We are here to do an interview today with Jeff Minthorn, who I'll introduce in a moment. But just wanted to say, if you have any comments or questions, you can type it in the chat. And if we don't get to answer them today, then they will be answered at some point. So I'll keep an eye out for those questions. So first of all, I'm Alicia from Lux Eco Holidays, and we are a luxury sustainable company. So our values, we really want to focus on the luxury side of it, but also being sustainable and eco-friendly as well. And so today it is with great pleasure I welcome Jeff Minthorn here to speak to us. And I'll just do a short intro on Jeff. He is the publisher, editor-in-chief, and co-founder of Verge Magazine. Now, Verge Magazine is North America's premier magazine for exploring opportunities to study, work, and volunteer abroad. And one of their key values is enabling people to travel with purpose. And while I was reading the magazine, I think it was last month at some time, their most recent issue, I came across the essential guide to responsible and ethical travel. And it really stood out to me just because I feel that our values are very similar. And I think everyone should be made aware of how to travel better. So we're very happy to have you here, Jeff. Welcome.
Thanks, Alicia. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. I will hand it over to you and start with first question, which is, what is responsible or ethical travel?
Okay, well, that's a good question and a huge question. I think most people quite often associate it with kind of sustainable travel, environmentally sustainable travel, and I think that's one very, very important aspect of it. But it extends so far beyond that. Now we're starting to understand, is it everything from the modes of transportation to the sorts of accommodations you choose, to how you conduct your interactions in the country you're visiting, and how much effort you put into sort of understanding and acknowledging the cultural differences, and allowing yourself to be, I always think of it as being bathed in that other culture. So it's a huge set of behaviors and choices that we can make that all add up to a kind of a responsible way of traveling. Are you supporting local initiatives, or is the money all coming back home to where you live, right? Is the company, is the destination that you choose to visit, or the accommodations you choose. Is it locally run, or is it part of a big chain? What sort of transportation are you using while you're in country? Are you doing short hop flights, or are you maybe taking the train or some other means, or local cab or some other means to get around, or walking or cycling? So many factors. Yeah. So yeah, it's very, very, very broad.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to just be aware and to think about those things, you know, and that's one thing we look at when we're arranging trips. Like, are the tour guides local? Is the money going to benefit the local economy? And that sort of, you know, those factors. And like you said, the transportation, are flights necessary, or can you cycle or go by foot even? So I think, yeah, especially in today's kind of culture and society, it's really important to kind of think about that as we start to travel again. So thanks for that. And let me ask you, why are you personally passionate about it?
Well, I think for me, and for the reason we started Verge Magazine, really had to do with recognizing the value of travel, and those sort of intercultural experiences as a way of hopefully improving the world. When you start to gain an understanding of other cultures and other ways of living and other perspectives, it really changes how you go about your day-to-day life and how you interact with the world at large. So when we started Verge, and to this day, I sort of recognize that the value of travel, but it can also be, it's a double-edged sword, the proverbial hackneyed double-edged sword, right? Where it can do a lot of damage as well, if not done right. And so, because I guess because I'm passionate about travel and intercultural competencies, intercultural understanding, I can't in my mind separate travel from responsible travel. If you're going to travel, you need to be responsible. That is life. It's not even, you could even take travel out of it and be responsible, right? And if you're going somewhere else, be responsible there too. And so, I think many people are starting to recognize that, when you go on holiday, your responsibility doesn't. And far too many, for far too long, you go on holiday, and so does my sense of responsibility to anyone but me, right? It's my vacation. Come on.
Yeah.
So
kind of window, but you right. Shouldn't.
Yeah, it's only 2 weeks, right? What could go wrong?
Yeah.
But so yeah, I mean, that's where that passion stems from. And it really, I'll give you a story. What it really hit home. I was traveling in Bolivia some years ago, and I stayed with a group of students on Isla del Sol in Lake Titicaca, and it's just basically 2 fishing villages on the island. That's it, and every day, 1 or 2 ferries come over to the island, and people flock off the ferries, and they go straight up to, there's a set of ruins up there that people that people go look at. They spend an hour poking around the ruins, then they flock back out, and that's it. And so the income and the revenue for the villages is absolutely minimal. So I was staying with some people there, and there was one public toilet in the village and it was for the tourists. And there was a woman who kept it tidy, and when the tourists came off the ferry, it was a long ferry ride, so inevitably someone needed to use the bathroom. Usually lots of people. And so she was there, and she would charge the equivalent of about 10 cents to use the toilet. And I was standing there because where I was staying was right beside this place, and someone came in, and they had their guidebook. I won't say which one. And they said, no, we're not paying this many pesetas. And it said in the guidebook that we shouldn't pay more than this. And they were adamant. And I knew this woman because I'd spent a week there, and the sum was ridiculous. The argument was ridiculous, and I just thought, wow, this person needs to put down that guidebook and sort of get a grip on what this village is all about and who these people are and how much they're actually paying. And it was a real poignant sort of example of irresponsible tourism.
Oh, yeah, that's unbelievable to witness. Yeah, I mean, for the sake of that amount and what it would have meant to her. And yeah, I often hear about, like you mentioned, those big tourist sites where you get hordes of tourists coming in, and I haven't been to Machu Picchu, but I've heard that there's local restaurants that are often overlooked in terms of for the ones that are just well known to the tour guides or popular, and those are the ones where the income is not necessarily going into the community. So I think it's like you said, just being aware of how things are affecting people. Yeah.
And that's such a good point.
Yeah, I always say it's about leaving minimal impact. Maximum enjoyment, but minimal impact on the communities. Yeah, and
agreed. Well, and your point about the local establishments that aren't getting the sort of traffic that they might. It really is sort of an opportunity to maximize your enjoyment, but also maximize your positive impact by searching out those little places. Really, if you get into that mindset as a traveler, that is part of the adventure, is finding these kind of crazy little weird places that you look in the guidebook and say, okay, here's all the ones that are listed in the guidebook, so I won't go there. I'm going to find something that is not in the guidebook. Like, that's way more fun.
Definitely the ones that the locals recommend or point out to you. Those are like you said, the best adventures, the best experiences, really. Yeah. And on that note, are there any places where you have been that you've really seen this in action? In terms of supporting the local communities. Can you think of somewhere right?
I think it happens all over, and I think a lot of it relies not necessarily on the destination, but more on the travelers, or if they're going with if it's a holiday package, organizations who take these ideas and take this sort of behavior seriously, and so you can have different operators in the same area with completely different ethics. And I worked for a season in Antarctica, taking people down to the Antarctic Peninsula on a ship, and it was interesting. You would see the differences in how operators were behaving firsthand. Right, there was a kind of a code of conduct amongst various operators that you were to follow. Only certain size of vessels could go into certain places. You are not to interact with the wildlife, and so on and so forth. And depending on which operator it was, some were very, very strict about all of those things. Right down to the motors they had on their Zodiacs had to be 4-stroke motors, and because they polluted far less. And others, whatever. So I really do think it depends on the operators, and I think as much there's some really solid operators. Like what you're doing, I think sounds to me like you're on the right track. And it also takes travelers to put the pins to them to make sure that it's like, no, we're not buying this package because or we're not going to travel with this outfit because we know that they're not as serious about doing things sustainably. And I think it's important to it's easy to put that on your website, sustainable travel, right? It's another thing to walk the walk. And so I think travelers need to be really to inform themselves and be really judicious about which organizations they choose to travel with. You know, everything from if it's a holiday package to everything else they engage in as part of their travel, whether it's their accommodations, their transportation, you know, their food, where they eat, what they eat. Yeah.
So true. That's such a good point. And like you said, I mean, it's easy just to put the words on a website, but then it's up to us as travelers on the other side to ask. So, you know, you say you're a sustainable accommodation. How are you doing this? You know, what are you doing to be sustainable? I think that's key. Like you said, just on both sides, being aware. And if you see something that's not right, you know, questioning that. Yeah, that's excellent advice. And just for, you know, people who want to go on a holiday soon, what are some tips that people can implement on their own, aside from, you know, choosing an ethical tour operator? What are some tips that they can do to be more eco-friendly travelers?
Well, I think what we were just talking about is a good starting point. Is probably number one is inform yourself. What questions do you need to ask in order to ensure? Ask yourself and ask your tour operator if you're going with a tour company. What questions should you be asking to make sure that it isn't just a word on a website? So you know, you should be asking if there are they employing local people as guides, or they're like on the ground in country. How much, you know, how are the proceeds of my trip being channeled back into the local economy? All of those sorts of things. Beyond that, just personally as a traveler, you know, what an important thing is to think about your modes of transportation. Typically, longer term travel is a little less footprint, right? Because you're staying in a place longer, so you're sort of minimizing the back and forth. While you're in country, you can then choose modes of travel, whether it's cycling or by you know, paddling. And you know, there's kayak trips you can do. It's like by boat, by train. You know, if there are flights, can you offset? Can you travel? You know, travel economy. Just that's a starting point. The footprint is smaller. Could you travel on? You know, if you're really adventurous, you could book on a cargo ship, and you know. So there are ways to do that. Other things, you know, choosing your destinations is are you going to a place where there are human rights abuses? And if so, you know, there's debate. Do you go there or do you not? You know, one argument is like, don't go there, don't support the regime that is committing these human rights abuses. On the other hand, you could be going and supporting locals who maybe have no involvement or, you know, have nothing to do with that, but could definitely use the tourist revenues. Are you engaging with animals while you're traveling? How are you going to ride elephants? Why don't you go to an elephant sanctuary instead, or you know, an animal sanctuary rather than a zoo or a circus or something like that? Because most cases the animals are not well treated because they're being trained through force to perform, right? But a sanctuary is different. You can actually you know, do some good. You know, it might be mucking out stalls or something like that, but actually you're doing some good, right? Other things. Trying as much as possible to work on it in camping, and like in the backcountry we call it leave no trace, right? Where what you take in, you take out, leave only footprints, that old adage. And you can do that while you're traveling too. You know, everything from you know, not drinking bottled water, take your own water, get yourself a filter. You know, many companies, Catadine, all kinds of companies make filters where you can fill them with water, and it'll filter your water. It's so easy to do now, to not use water bottles. That's just one simple thing. But there's lots of destinations, they don't have the capacity to deal with the waste that tourists produce. So think about that very carefully. What can you do not to contribute to that problem?
For sure. And I love that, even, you know, the little tips that you gave, because even the little things, they do add up. Even if you start small, like just something as simple as getting a filtered water bottle and not buying bottled water. And sometimes we can kind of overlook those small things. But yeah,
absolutely.
And you mentioned before about the food. So a big trend now is, you know, farm to table food. So what can you kind of add about eating habits while people are away in terms of being more eco-friendly?
Well, I think in terms of eco-friendly and it also cultural experience, if you can seek out small local establishments, you know, go listen to what locals are telling you. Ask advice, you know, wherever you're staying. Ask where are the good places to eat, and that where would your family go? You know, where would you go to eat, and go there, because quite often they're going to source their food locally. If you have like local markets and street vendors are good places to go, but you've got to be careful about what you're eating. Like, you know, is this am I eating an endangered species here, or am I eating something that's not sustainably harvested? So it requires a little bit, you know, before you go to a destination, you know, what might be local fare, and what are you looking for, and how, you know, inform yourself about what you might be eating and how it's acquired. You know, is it like eating this delectable seafood that's, you know, harvested unsustainably? That's not so good. But, you know, maybe from a local fisherman or a small shop who gets their fish from a, you know, one of the local fishermen, that's probably going to be the best fish you ever ate, for one. Going to be awesome because you're supporting a small local, probably family-owned establishment, and the fishermen. You know, everyone wins.
And helping the environment, so it's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love
absolutely.
those experiences where you can go and just you know, buy the ingredients from the market. And even I love doing cooking classes when I'm away. So the best ones from here, where you can go to the markets, you know, local markets, get your stuff from there and go cook it yourself and eat it. And, you know, it's usually led by someone in the local community. So those are great, and you know where it's coming from. So yeah, and I think, like you said, eating according to where you are. So if you're by the coast, and go seek out fishermen and eat fresh fish. And if, you know, you're in the middle of the countryside, you can get nice food grown, fresh vegetables and fruit. So I mean, it's better to eat fresh and to eat local, and it's just better all around, I think. Great. So let me just throw it out there to our audience and see if there's any questions or comments. Does anyone have any questions for Jeff? Hello, everyone. There's quite a few people saying hello. Yeah. Okay. No questions. Someone's typing. No. No questions at the moment. Well, I mean, that was great advice to you're relieved, aren't you? Come on, don't let him get off that easy. Get him a question. No, that was very important. I love hearing your stories. I'm sure you have a lot of those.
Oh.
And we could kind of go back, because at the beginning I didn't really mention how you started the magazine and why you started it. Maybe before we close, you could just give a little bit of information on that.
Sure. Well, it's kind of a long story, but the short version is I was working in Antarctica, and my co-publisher happened to be on the ship one of the trips, and we got talking about how important travel is, and she was at the time an environmental. She worked as a consultant for an environmental economist, or was an environmental economist, and so she was actually pretty instrumental in all of the regulations right now around the Inca Trail and how that is conducted, how the locals receive revenues, how it's kept sort of clean. She did the consulting for that years ago. So we had this conversation about, how important travel is, and why don't more people know about the options to travel sustainably and to travel longer term, work, study, volunteer overseas, teach abroad. And there seemed to be no good resources out there that would help people find these opportunities, make good choices about them. So after we left Antarctica, I continued my work there. She left, and she was living in the UK. But we kept in touch, and we kept the conversation rolling. And then she decided she was going to move back to Canada at some point. And we thought, I wonder if we could do something with this. And so we thought, well, why don't we just start a magazine? And so we cobbled together what savings we had, which wasn't much, and made a magazine. We knew nothing about magazines. We knew nothing about any of it, but we were just passionate about this idea. And so we started off with a little, I think it was a 16-page run of 5,000 copies that we distributed to schools throughout Canada, and we just kind of grew it from there.
That's incredible. Oh, that's great. And I love how it started on just while you were out traveling, and you've traveled quite a bit. You've studied, worked, and traveled on 6 continents. Is that the case? Yeah. Oh, so we also have a question come in. I think you kind of answered this with your last with your how you started the magazine, but Patricia asked, how do you gain interest from mainstream travelers to convert them to eco-friendly travel? So how do you create interest, I guess she's asking.
That's good.
Good question.
Good question. Yeah, no, it's I think fundamentally people are open to that idea, and it's more the case of they've never been presented with that option in a way that kind of makes sense to the way they travel or jibes with how they travel. For example, why do people travel? I mean, for many, many reasons, but usually it's to see something new, to have an adventure, and to put themselves in a different situation. So one of the ways that I approach it is if you're going to have an adventure, right? Don't eat at Best Western restaurant down in the lobby. Go stay somewhere that you're actually living, maybe staying with a host family, or really gives you an opportunity to rub elbows with the community that you're visiting, and really make an adventure. If you want to know about a culture, here are all the things that will help you learn. You go eat with them. You go eat the food they eat. You listen to the music they listen to. You go to the places they frequent and talk with them. That's an adventure, right? You're totally pushing your boundaries. You're totally putting yourself in an unfamiliar situation, and you can ease into it. It doesn't have to be all like in the depths of the forest, crazy adventure. You can ease into it and make it kind of gentle. It's like, hey, why don't we, instead of eating here, why don't we try this place? Look at all the locals, and it's got to be good, right? So definitely. Yeah, I think you find entry points for what people's interests are, and then we used to do this in experiential education a lot, right? You find the limit and you say, okay, take one more step.
Yeah.
You like seafood, right? Let's go to I know a real good seafood place. Only the locals know about this.
Yeah, I like that. Small steps instead of jumping right into it, really. Yeah, that's great. And I think, like you said, it's about starting small and changing people's perspectives. So one thing with my company is, people have this traditional idea of luxury, but I mean, to me, that's not luxury. Luxury to me is, being in the middle of a rainforest, surrounded by nature and just being at peace, really. So you can kind of change your mindset almost, and create a new kind of need and want to travel this way, like you said. And it's about awareness too, and just you all joining us on this talk. That's great, because now I'm sure you have some ideas of how you can travel more responsibly. So yeah, we got a comment from Annette. So Annette, if she has a comment, I'll just put on the screen. Sorry, Annette, put you on the spot. She says, can't think of a question, but agree with everything. Just thinking about some of my travel experiences, example, visiting Pompeii by catching the train rather than booking a coach trip, or visiting Machu Picchu over 2 days and staying in Agua Caliente, eating at local restaurants rather than doing a coach trip. You also get to spend longer at the sites. Yes, definitely. And like you mentioned, Jeff, slowing down is a really nice way to experience things.
Absolutely. Slow down, get lost. That's the best way. Get yourself lost. You'll have amazing adventures. I once ended up having lunch with 3 families from all over the world in a castle because I took a wrong turn.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Well, I can listen to your stories all day, but I won't keep you here all day. But I just want to say thank you for the comments and the questions, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And most of all, thanks to you, Jeff. That's been so informative, and I've learned a lot, and I know everyone else has, and I've really enjoyed chatting with you today.
My pleasure, Alicia. Thanks so much for having me, and wish you all the best with the venture. It's pretty exciting, and my hope is that more and more people sort of pick up this torch and do responsible travel for real.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's hope. We'll chip away at that. But thank you so much. I hope you have a great day, and we'll speak soon. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Alicia.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.